Hey guys, welcome to this session by Intellipaat. HTML has been the foundation to the internet era, right? So the internet was the biggest thing that happened in this particular century, as many people call it. And of course, at the end of the day, you know the value of HTML if you're on this video. Now, with HTML being the foundation of any website that's out there, there is a huge demand. There is a never-ending demand for expert HTML developers now. Now, keeping this in mind, we here at Intellipaat have come up with these top HTML interview questions and answers video which you can use to get ahead of your competition and ace your interviews. There's a lot of questions that we'll be checking out. There's a lot of concepts that we'll be taking a look at, from the basic questions through the intermediate questions and more. But then guys, before we begin with this session, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so that you'll never miss any updates from us. And also, if you guys are looking for certification in HTML, make sure to check out the latest offerings that are present on the Intellipaat website. There should be a link in the description box right now, so make sure to check that out. And now, without further ado, let's start the class.
So coming to the first question on this top HTML interview questions and answers set, it states compare HTML and XML. Well, at this point of time, if you're at the interview questions video, you must know all of the basics, right? Well, even if you do not worry. We're going to cover a couple of basic and of course intermediate level questions as well. Now, coming to the answer of it, there are three important criteria on how we compare HTML and XML. The first thing is the deployment or the actual working of what HTML and XML does and how we can see the output itself, right? See, so HTML basically shows us, how things are rendered on the screen, and we can ourselves see the output on the screen. And then when you talk about XML, XML is used to actually describe what things are, and more than the final result of what you see, it describes the events that will lead to your final result. And then when we're talking about the functioning area, right? See, with HTML, it's a computer to human interaction in a way where you write HTML code and you work with it. So it's you as a human or a programmer talking to a computer. And then when you're talking to XML, right? XML is describing what the data actually is present and a lot of those things. So in that case, it's considered as a computer to computer interaction. And now when we talk about the most important point, if HTML or XML can explain what the data means, in terms of HTML, no, it's standardized syntax, which is basically, used to take an input, process something, provide an output, right? So it cannot explain what the data means, and it's just a syntax, it's a scripting language, and it works that way. But XML, it's a little different there. It has the capability to explain what the data means, because at the end of the day, that is what XML is used for too. Now, coming to the second question, it states what is the dollar function in the jQuery library? One thing you really have to know is that the dollar function in the jQuery library is actually the alias of the jQuery function itself. Even though at first, you guys, when you take a look at the dollar function, it might look a little wary, or it might look a little cryptic, but at the end of the day, once you start using it, you will know the value of what it adds into the usage of the function. Because what the dollar function does is that in a very easy way, it provides you the methodology that you can use to wrap any object that you require and convert it into a jQuery object. And once you do all of this, right, once you have the object converted into a jQuery object, you can call various methods that's required. You can define any of the jQuery object, you can start working with it completely, and that's such a handy function to have, especially when you're working with this, right? And it's not just that. If you have the requirement to pass a selector string to the dollar function, what it will basically do for you in return is that it will give you the jQuery object which contains all of the array of the matched DOM elements that are present too. So when you're thinking about its functionality, its usage, its ease of use, and what it does to you in general, it's a pretty popular function. It does a lot of things with a lot less code as well, and in that case, the dollar function is definitely very helpful, and the reason for its popularity is the same. Coming to question number 3, it says what are the advantages of using jQuery? Well, again, this is a generic question, so make sure you're not carried away by answering this, right? You can probably state 5 to 6 points or 7 points or something like that. And if you've used jQuery and HTML a lot, and you can literally state probably 20 advantages and start explaining each of them as well. So read the room, read the interviewer, see how much he or she expects in detail, and based on that, you can answer it. The first thing important about jQuery is that it's really easy to use, it's easy to learn, and of course, you can expand it and and scale it to the project requirement based on whatever your requirement is, without having to put much effort there as well. And then when we talk about the cross browser support, right, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Opera, Chrome, whatever browser you can think of, jQuery fits there really well too. And they have the DOM manipulation, DOM traversal. All of these are very easy to use. There's a huge pool of built-in methods that will help you get around with a lot of tasks easily. Ajax compatibility, of course, and at the end of the day, the application of CSS, right, cascading style sheets, will help you a lot when you're creating animations or when you have to keep things aesthetic as well. In that case, that's going to definitely help. There's a lot of plugins. There's event detection, event handling in the case of an error or a bug or something, or you want to go about working with it in a structured way. So there's a plethora of advantages, especially when making use of jQuery. So 5 to 6 points, and elaborating on those points, in my opinion, should be more than enough for this question. And then coming to question number 4, it states, what are the form elements that support media content in HTML5? See, what are the types of media whenever we talk about HTML, right? It has to be images, videos, we're going to be embedding some text into it. You're going to be redirecting to another page or something like that, right? So to do all of that, especially when you're using forms, right, there are 5 elements that you really have to consider. One is the audio, we have the video, we have source, embed, and track. Basically, as the name suggests, it is used for that particular media. For example, audio is used for audio media, and then we have video, of course. We have source. Source is used to provide a link. You can embed whatever that you require, and of course you can track that as well. So considering all the features that you get with HTML5, these 5 elements always take center stage whenever we talk about media content. And then coming to question number 5, it says, what is RWD, or what is responsive web design in HTML and CSS? Well, you have to know that responsive web design, or it's called as RWD mostly. It's one of these concepts that is extremely important in today's world, especially in the world of mobile computing and portable computing, because here what we're trying to do is we are trying to create a web page which will work fine across multiple resolutions. See, now what happens is that if you design a website for one particular resolution, right, so it's 1920/1080, the standard 1080p. If you do for that, now what if someone wants to see your website on the phone? So things are going to take a lot of it's basically going to take away the entire user experience out of it, right? So things are going to start tearing, things are cutting out, there's loss of information. It makes for a horrible user experience. To avoid all of that, an RWD basically talks about having your website automatically adjust to the screen size of the device that it's viewing from. This will provide an optimal viewing experience. This will make sure that at the end of the day the user experience is held, and it can be a make it or break it if your website doesn't work on a mobile platform but works beautifully well on the PCs, right? So it won't make sense. To make sure that your website's screen resolution gets scaled across, this is used. Now coming to question number 6, it states, can you differentiate between ID selector and class selector in jQuery? Well, in case if you guys have actually made use of CSS, you will know the difference that exists between the ID selector and the class selector, right? So it's exactly same with jQuery as well, because what we're trying to do here is that with the ID selector, we make use of an ID, right? See, for example, we have the hashtag element1. It means that we have to select element, while class selector will make use of the CSS classes to select the class elements, right? It's pretty simple and straightforward. So, whenever you have a requirement of, let's say, you only need to select one element, you'll use the ID selector. Well, if you want to take an entire group and you want to have the same CSS class there, then it's pretty simple. You're going to use the class selector. So whenever this question is being answered, right, so there's a good chance that the interviewer will actually ask you to put it down on code. So I would really suggest that you guys have a pen and paper handy, or of course if you have your laptops, make sure to open that. Just show the difference between what goes on to using an ID selector with the hash, and of course later with the class selector using dot. So these simple kind of nuances will definitely help you a long way in the candidature of your this thing as well. So in that particular case, I would really suggest the practical approach wherever possible throughout this HTML interview question set. Even if the question doesn't ask for it, you yourself can offer saying, hey, can I show this to you practically? It might take 5 minutes. If the interviewer is okay for it, of course, that should help you a lot as well. Coming to question number 7, it says, can you differentiate between $of this and of course the this keyword in jQuery? Now, if you're getting new into HTML, new into jQuery, this is one of these questions which is considered to be a little tricky because I don't know why, but whenever this question has been come across by a lot of people who have gone for interviews, they seem to fumble upon it. But you really have to know that it's a very simple difference. Dollar of this will actually return a jQuery object through which you can call several jQuery methods too. For example, you have the text method, right? What does text method do? It retrieves the text. What does val do? It retrieves the value. And this will only represent the current element that is present there. And of course, it's one of the JavaScript keywords that we have to go on to show what DOM element we have in the context that we're talking about right then and there. And what you can choose to do is you can choose not to call the jQuery method around it until it's been wrapped. And what do we use for a wrapper function in jQuery? It's the dollar function, right? So dollar of this is basically doing that. We're going to have several methods to work on a particular text. To do that, it has to be wrapped. To wrap it, we make use of the dollar function, and then on with the difference of it's working in the usual way too. So with that, coming to question number 8, it says, what is the main advantage of loading jQuery library using CDN? Okay, so whenever you're talking about loading, right, see, there's many advantages of how we can reduce the server bandwidth, how we can have a faster download, and a lot of other advantages too. But then if you've actually started downloading something with the same jQuery version as what's existent in your CDN, right, it means that it will not download it again. And now especially the biggest advantages is that when most of the public websites that are out there will make use of jQuery for its requirement of, let's say, animations or even user interaction. Now, when that is the case, what it already does is that it means that the browser will already have the jQuery library downloaded. So it means you really do not have to download it again and again every time it's go on to load it, right? So that's the biggest advantage. That's the main advantage of loading the jQuery library using the CDN, so that it exists and you really don't have to download it again and again. Coming to question number 9, it says, what is semantic HTML? Well, semantic HTML, right? The name semantic actually is considered whenever we're talking about a coding style that we have. So here what we're trying to do is, it's a coding style where we have the tags, where the tags literally have a meaning to it in the English language. It's not like something which is, which is highly unreadable, or if it's in the, there are some tags where you will not know what it means unless it's specified to you, right? See, as a beginner person, it is very easy to figure out a tag like bold or italic or underline, because these are very easy to use. Now, when we talk about semantic HTML, in this particular case, right, all of these tags is that they will represent some sort of formatting, but they will never tell you about the structure or the meaning of what's going on in the HTML code, right? So it works in an opposite way. Correct, it's highly readable, but then here what we're trying to do is we're trying to indicate the meaning of the structure rather than the formatting as well. So you can use multiple tags out there that will give you the same bold and italic effects while showing that there is structure to it and there's meaning to it. So the general talk of semantic is that whenever we go on to add meaning and structure to the existing tags out there, or we have new tags that does that, so we'll go on to use this as well. Coming to question number 10, it says, what is a class? What is an ID? A class, as the name suggests, in CSS especially, is actually a style. It's a group of CSS attributes which can be used to apply on one or more elements. Now, if you're talking about, hey, can I apply it to the same element, or does it have to be different elements? Well, yes, you can actually apply it to the instance of a same element or a different element to which this style gets attached to. So if you have a class and you have a common style for the class, so whatever elements, HTML elements you have under that class, that will pick up all of the styles there. And then we're talking about how classes are defined in CSS, right? We make use of a period, we make use of a dot, and then we have the class name. So this is done to make sure that we're telling CSS that, hey, that's a HTML element, that's a class attribute, there is a class name to that, and of course, under that, whatever is there, you style all of that based on whatever is present in that class as well. But then when you're thinking about how you can show this practically, as I told you, whenever you asked any question regarding class or ID, make sure to put out at least a small piece of snippet out there to show that you know it. For example, here we have .test, right? See, .test is the class that we're trying to have defined here. And then of course you want a font, you've picked up Helvetica, you want a font size of 20, you want a background of black color as well, right? So denote that you have this starting with the period, as we told, .test. just you open up the braces, you style it however the way you want, and you close the braces too. And now if you want to define all of the elements that are present within a class, right, this can be done with a very simple piece of code. All you need to do is select all of the elements that are present. Let's say if you have p elements, you just say p.column, and you just pick up all the styling elements that you have to put under it. Font color is equal to black. So whatever is the style defined here, it means that all the elements within the defined class will be in black color. Now coming to an ID selector, what we talk about an ID selector, ID is very specific to one element, to one style, right? Because here what we're trying to do is we're trying to associate one HTML element that we have with one particular ID. And within CSS, of course, you can define all of these ID requirements with just using the hash character and just put in the selector name out there. It's as simple as that. And again, here is a snippet on your screen. It's the hash example 1 background blue. So this is how you would go on to define an ID where you'll be using the HTML elements ID attribute, pair it with the CSS selector, and of course style it based on your requirement as well. So this is a pretty straightforward question. It's actually a simple question. So make sure to state what a class is, how it is used, put a small snippet out there, make sure to talk about ID, where ID is used, how can you use it with CSS, another small snippet, and you should be good to go with this particular question. Now coming to question number 11, it states what is grouping? Right. So whenever we talk about grouping, right, think about it practically. What do we mean by grouping? When we have more than one selector which will have the same declaration, there is this capability where we can group all of this by separating it via commas and creating a list out of it. Now, why would we want to do this? This will basically make sure that your huge size of CSS code is reduced, right? In a website, when you're talking about performance of it, loading times and everything, if your CSS code is extremely long, it's going to take a lot of time to render all of that out. So every single saving that you do in terms of space or size in code as well, that's going to help a lot. So to do all of this, to shape this entire kind of a performance out of the website, we are going to make use of grouping, and it's highly recommended. And in fact, it's a great practice, and I would suggest, in case if you guys weren't into looking at grouping, of course you can do it separately. There's no harm, things are going to work. But if you haven't checked out grouping, I would highly recommend you guys to check that out as well. And then question number 12. See, there's a very good chance out of the blue, in the middle of an interview, you can expect this question saying, hey, what is HTML? So you might be asked, all of the 11, 12 questions that we discussed until now, and then suddenly they'll be like, okay, so what is HTML? Well, this is done to make sure to check how spontaneous you are and how well can you reproduce the answer for, the topic that you're interviewing for in general. Start the answer out in the most appropriate way. That is by telling that HTML is actually a short form for, hypertext markup language. It is the language for the World Wide Web, or the WWW as we call it. It is a standard text formatting language where we use to build websites, where we build a web page and displaying content on the website as well. So after that, and of course, if the interviewer is expecting more, you can talk about how the HTML structure is laid out as well. You can start from the entire structure of all the tags that you have used, and even before that, you can tell that all the documents of HTML actually go on to have two very important things. One is the content itself that needs to be displayed, and the second thing is the governing element for these contents. Those are the tags. These tags will define how you can format something, how you can display it properly on pages, and a lot more, right? So considering all of that, make sure to put it out and word it out in a very concise way. And of course, it will hardly take 5 minutes to show a simple snippet of maybe printing your name on a website as well, or creating a button or something, right? So that would really help if you can do that practically. So make sure to take a note of that. And then coming to question number 13, it says, how do CSS precedence or cascading rules work? And how does the exclamation important directives affect the rules? Right. So whenever we talk about CSS style, it rules the cascade in a way where, of course, there is a sense of order that we have, right? It's called as precedence. Whenever we talk about precedence in general, we talk about order too. So global styling is something which will apply always first to the HTML that are present, it's like for the entire page or a lot of tags that are present there. Now, when we're talking about local styling means that for that particular elements there's a change in the style for that in that particular body or in that particular context. So what happens is that you can have multiple types of styling in a particular page, and you can have one global style that governs everything else too. This is the practical use of it. And the way we use the important rule is that we make sure that we have the css cascade, but at the end of the day the rules is also there, and these rules to be used, you need this property that will say no matter where or what that the rule appears in the document, it has to work, and that prefer that over the general style. So basically to do that, if you have the property, you would want to go on to use it to show that there is precedence, and that no matter what, when the website or the web page is being rendered, the style directive needs to be used. And then coming to the 14th question, it states, what is the use of a namespace in web development? Whenever we talk about a namespace, right, what is namespace? It's one of these global objects that are present, which we use as a container, right? Not literally a container, but a container which contains all the methods, the properties, and of course, it is an object which will contain other objects in it too. That's a namespace. Why do we want to use namespace? Well, because it offers a lot of modularity. It saves a lot of time when you're typing out code, and of course, when you have a certain piece of code in a language such as HTML, right, things can get repeating, and with repeating things there'll be a lot of name conflicts, there'll be a lot of confusion as well. So to avoid all of this, right, we make use of a namespace, and a namespace is extremely important that you should know, and of course again you can practically demonstrate it too. So coming to the 15th question, it says, what are the newly introduced input types in HTML5? As an HTML enthusiast or a person who's going for the HTML interview, you really should know about HTML5, how many revamps it has had in the past, what are the types of addition they keep doing to it, and how easy it is now to work with, right? Because HTML, the previous versions of it was a little tough to get started with if you're a beginner or an intermediate user as well. Now, there's a lot of things that'll make your life a lot easy when you're working with HTML5. So what are some of these input types that are present in HTML5, right? See, there's 5 or 6 very important things you have to talk about. One is color, we have date, we have the date time local, we have email, we have month, we have number range, where, these are the input types through which the user can actually go on to, communicate with HTML, have the result display on the screen, and do a lot of that as well. So to do this, previously it required a lot of code, but now there's a direct input type through which, you can input all of these, and you can save a lot of time, lot of space, and have your ability as a HTML developer be efficient, where you can spend more time on logic rather than syntax as well. Coming to question number 16, it states, can you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 depending on your proficiency in HTML? Now, this is a very tricky question. I'll tell you why. Because here the interviewer is trying to grasp your understanding of the subject. How spontaneous can you be when answering such a question? How confident you are in the subject itself, right? See, one important suggestion, guys, when you're on this question, this is a question which is definitely going to be asked, in my opinion. So when you think about it that way, if you are very comfortable with HTML, if you've had previous experience working on it, of course, depending on your proficiency, all the work that you have done, you can rate yourself 8, 9, 10 or whatever you think is right. But then if you're a fresher, if you're a beginner who's worked on small projects, if you just go on to say I rate myself 10 on 10, what will happen is that you're going to be asked extremely complex questions, probably in a way where you'll not be able to answer them, and the interviewer will think that you're incapable of it, and your candidature may be heavily affected by that, right? So there is no harm in honestly answering, right? Everyone will tell you, if you ask this question, rate yourself above 7 always. Not really. It's all the production jobs that we have today are learn as you go. No one expects you to be an extreme professional who knows everything before you join yourself to the role. Not really. So in that particular case, rate yourself honestly. Talk about, if you're rating yourself a little less than what you think is what you're performing, right? It's always better to be a little less optimistic here. Tell the interviewer specifically that you're a person who is a fast learner, who has the capability to pick up new things rapidly, learn and adjust to that. So that should really help you in case if the rating that you have given yourself is a little low. And of course, if you feel that way, if you don't feel that way, if you think that you've been very honest in answering that, that's well and good. Just be extremely confident when you're answering this question. That's a very important thing, guys. And then coming to the 17th question, it states, why are you applying for the HTML developer role in our company? One thing you really have to talk about is the value of HTML in general, because it is an ocean worth of technology, right? It's a huge thing. I would suggest you talk about why HTML is important, and to the company that you're applying for, how HTML is adding value to them, or how you as a developer sitting on the bench can try to go on to add value to the team, how you can better their product, better their brand, something like that, right? On the lines of that, if you do answer, it's going to be very impressive. So to do all of this, you will need to know what domain the company is working in, or what the company itself is doing, the job description, the most minute details of the company that you can find probably on their website is definitely going to help you to do this. For example, if you have gone through their website, if you see that there is some misalignment, or there is something wrong in the HTML code, or there's something out of place, you can actually state that right then and there. Open up your laptop, show them, hey, this is where something is off, I can do this better, and all of that. Of course, don't put it out in a very arrogant way when you're pointing out mistakes, but talk about how better you would do it. That is definitely going to help. And then coming to the 18th question, it says, has your prior education helped you with HTML in any way? Now, if you guys are from an information science or a computer science background, you can be asked this question in a way where they're trying to see if you have learned anything similar to HTML, CSS, jQuery, or any of these in your, in your degree courses. So if that's the case, of course, do talk about how you would have learned it in your degree course. Talk about how you plan to put it into full use in case if you're freshers as well. Of course, if you're experienced guys, there's a good chance they'll not ask you this. Even if they do, just talk about what you learned, how you put it to use in your previous company, and how you bettered yourself there, and you bring that better self of yours into this company. So it's a pretty simple and a straightforward way. There is no one answer that I can give you guys to tell, hey, use this to answer, right? So it's like a flavor of ice cream. You can like something, I can like something else, but there is a foundation of how ice cream works. Use the foundation, find the way on how you approach these questions and answer them. Based on that, just go on to see what you would like to answer, and see yourself as the interviewer to see if you liked your answer. That is definitely a top tip that's going to help you guys in these interviews as well. Now, coming to question number 19, it states, what is your plan after joining for this HTML developer role? Now, for this question, take a minute to think about it and answer, because they're asking you what you would plan yourself, right? How you would plan yourself. What do you think about the company? How would you add value to them as quick as possible? Now, if you're a fresher or an intermediate user as well, right, there is a structured way on how you would go about picking up clients' requirements, ingesting it, preparing the data that's required, working on a website plan, picking up all the necessities, dependencies, other teams that you have to work with, image team, animation team. All of these people have to come together to work with it. So your communication skills among all of the other skills that I just mentioned is very important as your role. So talk about you having a structured way about how you approach things and solve problems. And then it's not only that, to add more value to your candidature, you can talk about how there are trends that keep changing, how the latest trends can be implemented in your particular plan. After implementing something which is trending, you can see if it works or not, verify it. It works on an iteration where you find something trending, you try to use it. If it works, keep it. If not, find something else that's trending. So this goes on in a loop. So you make sure you talk about how you are ready and how you have scaled yourself to use the latest trends there as well. I think that should definitely help you with this particular question. And now, coming to the 20th question, it states, do you have any previous experience in the web development industry? Now, if you do have any experiences in the past, if you're not a fresher, of course, do talk about that. Talk about your previous experience in an elaborate way, how you added value to the company, what the company was doing, what your role was, how best you fit in there, and a lot of things that will help them get a clear picture of what you did. See, you cannot, mention a lot of details on your resume, right? Your resume has to be one of these tools that has to be very concisely put together. You cannot start writing stories on your resume. So here they have given you a chance to talk about it in detail. So make sure to talk about it in detail. Make sure to elaborate on it. But then if you are a fresher and if you have asked this question, of course you can start your answer with saying, hey, no, I'm a fresher, I haven't had any experiences. But instead of just leaving it at that, talk about your certification programs, right? If you have been an enthusiast who is learning on your own on any of the platforms out there right now, if you have picked up a certification program where you have planned to become an expert, or you have completed it, you're underway, whatever it is, make sure to talk about that too. Now, coming to the 21st question, it states, do you possess any other skill that you can add, value to this particular HTML developer role that you're applying for? Now, they've asked you about the other skills. What it means by other skills is that they might already know what are the skills that you need. You would have read the job description. You might already have that skill. You might have been interviewed on the skills that you already have. So talk about that a little bit when you're starting the answer. Explain the skills that you already possess. How you've how you're good at designing sites. How you can go on to script complex HTML blocks, how you're very good at project management, how you're very good at being a team player, a team lead, or a manager, or all of those roles. And once you've done that, right, you can talk about how the secondary skills are very important. Secondary skills involve team management, secondary skills involve negotiations with clients, third thing involves time management. You can talk about multiple different skills that, of course, you think you're good at. I cannot give you probably 3 or 4 points and say state this only, because those might not be the skills that you have, right? So take a minute, take a piece of paper, and of course note down all the skills, divided into 2 columns. Call it as primary skills, which is a definite requirement for the job, and of course secondary skills, which will complement your primary skills. That is how you should really go about approaching this question. And again, if you do it this way, it's going to help convince the recruiter, in my opinion. Now, coming to the 22nd question, it states, have you earned any sort of certification to improve your learning and your implementation process in HTML? Now guys, let's be very clear about one thing. Whenever we talk about certification programs, you would already know about it, right? There are a lot of certification programs out there, and a good certification program is going to give you a lot of things. It's going to give you a lot of content through which you can technically master the subject. You can have experts from across the world teaching you that. Industry level exposure will be given, job assistance will be given, 24/7 support will be given. So this is a lot of things that will add value to you, your learning, and you becoming an expert in that particular concept. Well and good. Now, what does the interviewer expect when you're asked this question, right? See, when you talk about your certifications, it will mean a lot to the interviewer. For example, career advancements. You might be coming from a background of digital marketing. You might be coming from a background of arts, commerce, whatever it is into the world of HTML. They know that you want your career in this particular domain, that you are interested in it. You have a passion for it. You have a drive for it. So it's not just that. It will talk about how strong you are in terms of aspiration to actually learn something completely new, in case if you didn't have a computer science background, how well you can pick new things up, how effective of a learner you are, and a lot of these things as well, right? So when you're talking about all of these, it's going to be very, very impressive if you have put in the amount of work required, if you have the skills that's necessary for the job, and if you have had a practical experience, which of course a good certification program will give. Now, if you have done all of this, of course the interviewer is definitely going to be impressed. But to answer the question, I would definitely suggest, of course, start by listing all of the certifications that you have. Don't talk about it a lot. Don't explain everything about it in detail. Just go about it in brief, instead of talking about what you've learned, right? What I would suggest is talking about how you've used it and how it's been helpful right now. See, be it HTML or any other IT concepts that exist today, it's there for a reason. There are problems, and to solve it, we're going to make computers do it for us, and we're going to have to talk to the computer, write some code to do it. Now, talking about how you've used it, what problem you've picked up, what case study have you completed, what practical knowledge you have, what industry level use cases you attacked and targeted. Of course, there might be something that you picked up a very complex use case. You weren't able to do it. You were able to do it halfway across and all of that, right? So depending on all of that, even it's good that you mentioned that you've picked up something and you're working on it halfway, because it's very complex, because that will show that you're striving to learn more as well. It's not like you picked up a certification program, or in fact a college degree on HTML, and that you're done with HTML forever. It's a process of constant learning. It's a process of aligning yourself with the changes that go on to HTML, the company itself, you as a learner, and a lot of other things, right? So use all of this as a guideline to approach this particular question, and to impress the recruiter as well.
We hope this session was very informative for you all. If you have any questions, any suggestions, or any sort of feedback, make sure to head down to the comment section and do let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you out there. On that note, I hope all of you are keeping safe. I'll see you on the next one.